So thank you so much, Wim, for sharing all these wonderful and very important tips and best practices. I think we can go over to our next session now, where Kristen DeVito is going to talk more about mobile app diagnostics. Christian, over to you.
Great, thank you. All right, let me cue everything up. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for setting us up, Wim. That was a great session. We're going to spend the next 25 minutes talking about resolving mobile app test failures and errors quickly with Sauce Labs. First, we're going to go over some of the challenges with the current approach to resolving issues. And then we'll talk about how the app diagnostics within Sauce Labs real mobile app testing can help solve this. We'll have a demo of these features, and then just like the previous session, we'll open it up to Q&A. A little bit about myself. My name's Christian DeVito, and I'm a senior solution engineer here at Sauce Labs. Thank you all for joining and for your time today. I have a background in software engineering, and so I definitely understand a lot of the challenges with resolving issues as they come in, the frustrations involved with that, and just the need and desire for that to be a smooth and seamless process. So hopefully we can show some ways to accomplish that. You've probably recognized or heard the theme by now that every experience matters. And the reason that you'll hear that throughout this session is that that's one of our core mottos here at Sauce Labs. We believe that every experience for your end user across every device, operating system, every session that they access your application or website truly matters, and we want that experience to be as seamless as possible. And the reason behind this partially is that bad experiences are very costly. So, we can all think of an experience either from ourselves interacting with applications or from our end users where we've had a negative experience. And so just one of these negative experiences can cause abandonment of shopping your brand, negative reviews, and ultimately this erodes trust and really hurts your brand reputation. So some of the issues that customers are experiencing are long load times, app crashes, and really customers nowadays have no tolerance for this. So we've seen that up to 53% of users will uninstall an application if it freezes, crashes, or has any error at all. And really importantly is the time to resolution. So let's say something does happen where you have an error, a crash, a freeze. We want to resolve this as fast as possible because, if it's taking more than a couple seconds, most customers will abandon your brand completely. And a lot of times we're seeing teams where they're reporting that it's taking more than a day to fix these critical errors that are getting through to production or into their systems. So as you can see, negative experiences really can ultimately negatively impact your business. And so now let's talk about a few additional things for that. Why is it so challenging to find and resolve errors? One of the reasons behind this is just the complexity. A lot of modern and performant applications rely on different downstream services and third-party APIs. We see things like geolocation APIs, extra authorization, checking and billing APIs, and all of these factor into the complexity of finding where the errors are coming from. And it's really unclear what's causing these issues in your systems. So the limited context really increases the time to detection and the time to resolution. A lot of pain points that we're hearing from development teams revolve around lack of data. So they're not able to get context and insights on these issues. And that's one of the benefits of utilizing a solution that helps you track all of your errors from development through to production, as having the data across your entire testing suite all in one area. Additionally, taking time to parse through logs and reproduce bugs takes a ton of time. So I don't know how many times you guys have heard this scenario come in, but you basically get a bug where someone says they're having an issue with an application, but they're not giving clear and concise steps to reproduce that bug to get to the root cause. So those are all things that we help with our app diagnostics, and also by providing videos and recordings and logs of all of your testing cases. And then the slow handoffs and feedback loops between teams. So a lot of this is just the collaboration either between development teams, QA teams, or cross collaboration between all of the different teams involved in finding and resolving bugs. A lot of this is in the way that we report and document the bugs that are coming in. Things like how can we accurately and comprehensively pull all of this information into ticketing systems, things like Jira, and having all of the logs and reproducing steps to get to that error. And then finally, a huge risk and issue that we're seeing is the inability to identify and prioritize errors that are coming in. So a lot of our customers are seeing hundreds of thousands of errors and crashes come in per day. And it's really difficult to make sense of all of that noise. Being able to identify which errors are impacting the majority of your users, which errors need to be resolved the fastest. And that way you can really allocate your resources in the most efficient way possible. Right now, we'd love to hear from everyone in the session today to get a better understanding of some of the challenges that you're facing when you're looking to find a resolution. So we've gone ahead and opened up a poll right now. If you would just take a few minutes to go ahead and respond to that so that we can just get a feel for what you all are seeing. And we'll give that just a few seconds here. So some of the options is slow communication and feedback loops across your teams, too much time spent on reproducing issues, and then capturing and prioritizing errors happening in production. And Pilar, when you've seen quite a few responses come in, maybe 15 more seconds, if we could close out and see the results.
We still got a few people answering, so I'll give it a few more seconds and then I'll close it out.
Great.
We have about 60% participation, so get your answers in next few seconds and we'll go ahead and share the results with everybody. All right, I am going to close this.
Okay, so it looks like the results were somewhat more split than I was expecting, but that's really interesting. So it looks like 43% said too much time spent on reproducing issues when they're coming in, followed by slow communication and feedback loops across teams, and then finally capturing and prioritizing errors happening in production. So I'm not sure if everyone can see the results, but it looks like a 43, 37, and then 21% split. All right. Thank you all so much for providing that information. It's really helpful for us to hear what you're experiencing. And it seems like all the things that we discussed are really playing into the difficulties and resolution. But one of the main ones is just being able to reproduce and find the issues as they're coming in. So now let's talk about how Sauce Labs Real Device Cloud can help. I know Wim set us up by talking about emulators and simulators and real device testing, and he mentioned some of the benefits of testing across real devices, and we're going to dive deeper into each of those. Ultimately, we give mobile app diagnostics in our real device cloud by giving you a ton of information and quality signals. And what we mean by that is that every piece of information that's happening in your testing session can help get to a faster resolution. So information about what the customer is doing, full information about the interactions, the UI experience, as well as information about the real device itself, things like the CPU performance, battery, memory. And those are the kinds of things that you only get from testing on a real device cloud. One question that I get asked a lot is, what is really meant by a real device? I think sometimes the concept of that can be confusing. And it really just means that we have a couple different data centers with hundreds of thousands of real devices sitting in the data center that you're able to access through the Sauce Labs cloud. So it is a real device. It has the native features of that device. You're just interacting with it from a virtual perspective. And the ultimate goal of all of this is that we want to help reduce the time from going from your red failed test to green pass tests. And whether these are automated tests or live tests, we want to help you get to the best experience possible for your end user and also help your development and QA teams have a better experience by getting faster tests to pass. And the way that we do that, so here's some of the capabilities that we have within our mobile app Diagnostics. We're going to talk through a few of these. So the questions that we're answering here is, where in the code is this error happening, which is really important for those errors and crashes that are making their way into production. This is helping us with the capturing and prioritizing that we are talking about, as well as getting to a faster resolution. So with our error monitoring and crash reporting solution, you're able to identify errors and crashes that happen during your testing session. And then you can see the full call stack, logs, additional information, and exactly where in the code these issues are happening, because the ones that are making it through to production ultimately need to usually be resolved the fastest. Another thing that we offer is network capture, which helps us see where your issues are coming from. One thing that we've seen a huge proliferation of recently is API testing and really getting to the bottom HTTP requests and responses that are coming in for all of your applications. So with our real device testing, we do offer network capture functionality, so you can see the source of your mobile issues. And one thing that's really helpful within this as well is not only do we provide the network capture at the bottom of the test, but we also have what we call a network capture HAR file. And you can download this file, plug it into the Sauce Labs API testing tool, and it helps you generate your API scripts from scratch. So whether you have a fully fleshed out and advanced API testing strategy already, or you're really just looking to get started with API testing, we can help you by capturing the API calls that are coming through from your tests from a manual testing session. It's very easy, adding that file into our API testing tool and generating those test scripts. So then you can start to automate that process. You can add in parallelization, really get to a faster resolution for those issues coming in. And then additionally, we have device vitals, which are really critical when you're testing on real devices, because this helps us understand additional reasons that could cause your app to crash and really how the application is interacting with the real device, because that's how your end users are going to interact with it. So here we can get deeper visibility into device vitals that include CPU performance, memory usage, and UI responsiveness, which I find particularly important because we already talked about how any delays or lag in your UI can cause your customers to potentially churn or abandon their experience. If you're able to see real-time UI responsiveness for what parts of your application are loading slowly or causing a delay for your end users, then you can work on improving your performance and really just better understand the experience that your end users are having. And then finally, we provide real-time interactions. So this lets us see step-by-step what's happening in the session. It lets you fix your problems faster because you can actually access the user's interactions and associate these with the app's UI. So this ties directly into what we were talking about not wanting to have to reproduce the test steps. You're able to see step by step what's happening during the test session, all of the interactions coming in, and then we can see what's happening as a result of each of those. So if something does happen, 3 minutes into a session, then you're able to know exactly where you are in your application and resolve that much faster. Okay. So we've kind of set up how the current state right now of debugging is really frustrating and time consuming. We saw the results coming in from the poll of some of the issues that teams are experiencing right now about really not being able to understand what's going wrong with the test, how we're going to reproduce this on a local device, and wanting to stitch things together before figuring out the root cause. But there is a better way. And the future state with Sauce Labs is that you're able to detect and resolve these issues fast and easily. We're able to see if issues coming in are from downstream services, if it's something at the underlying API level, if it's something wrong with the device itself from a device battery or CPU perspective. We can also see what's happening and understanding what the next step is to fix the issue and release your application. And one thing I didn't mention about all of the capabilities for the future state with Sauce Labs is that they can be utilized in both a manual testing session, but also within your automated test scripts. So the network capture, the device vitals, these are all different capabilities that you can plug into your existing automated test scripts, so that when you're scaling up and running to run many tests across hundreds of real devices, you can do that. And that's one thing that we see customers really turning to Sauce Labs for, is to get a breadth of coverage. So not just running their tests on one device at a time, but wanting to make sure that they're able to get the experience of their end users across any different device and operating system. Because we know that many different end users, we might have people on very new devices or perhaps outdated devices. We want to make sure that that's a smooth and seamless experience for everyone. I'm going to look at the chat really quick just to see if there's any questions. Okay, so one that I see is, does Sauce Labs support all types of mobile brands or only the stock Android phones for Pixel, Samsung, etc.? And I'll add some information here, and if anyone else wants to add in for Q&A. We have Android devices, iOS devices. We have hundreds of different device types, so many of which are the most common devices, but then we also have quite a few unique devices as well. So for example, in our EU data center, we have EU-specific devices. We also have Zebra devices and are in the beta process of launching some additional smart devices as well. And now that we've set the context for the current state and the future state, I'm going to go ahead and switch to a quick demo by one of my colleagues showing some of these mobile app diagnostics in real time.
My name is Karim Masumi, and I'm a solution engineer at Sauce Labs. Let's look at a workflow that highlights how Sauce Labs mobile app diagnostics provides insights into how your customers interact with your app, how your app consumes APIs and services, and your app's code. First, though, let's go shopping. Let's create some session data and go shopping. I don't really need this bag, but we're going to go ahead and add it to the cart. And you're right, I don't need it, so let's just remove it. But the app isn't responding when I try to do that. A little bit odd, but let's continue. Maybe a shirt. Not 10 though, so let's also remove this. And again, app's not responsive. Well, it really came for the bike light, so those two issues are okay. But now the app's crashed. Not the greatest experience. Let's look at the session data and see if we can figure out what went wrong. Let's take a look at our test session. If we focus in on the lower right panel, we'll see that we have a section called Network, Error and Crash Reporting, and Device Vitals. Let's focus on Network. I'm going to select only the errors. Let's take a look at a couple of calls, taking a look at the headers. We've got a trace ID. Now, very useful information, not specifically what we need in this case. Let's move on to the device vitals. Here we can see CPU performance, memory usage, and UI responsiveness. The UI responsiveness is critical for us to see those two app not responding issues that came up. Let's take a look at the video and the interactions now. You can see the class name, attributes, IDs, and can scrub the video right to these points. Again, this is useful, but right now I think we need to focus on the actual error that we got. Let's jump in. First part is we can see that there were similar issues coming up that were logged. Now, we jump into debug, we see the call stack. We even have some assets that we can take a quick look at. More helpful information, but ultimately, we just jump into the source code and we can see where the issue is. We just saw how mobile app diagnostics provides you insights into how your customers and their devices interact with your app, how your app consumes APIs and services, and when needed, access to detailed error and crash reports. Thank you.
So we just saw in a demo, Kareem showing our mobile app diagnostics. He went through the network capture, device vitals, showed how our error monitoring, crash and reporting ties into your tests within the sauce UI. And I'm going to open it up for some Q&A and just a final wrap up.
Thank you, Christian. We did get some questions. So let me ask you the first one here from Joshua. Is there any solution for capturing the API calls with an emulator simulator with automation?
I'll have to double check on that. I believe the API calls specifically is for our real devices at this time. But if anyone else has additional context on that or information, feel free to jump in and we can take that as a follow-up.
Yes, we can definitely do that. Carl has a question. Are the diagnostics enabled by default for both manual and automated tests?
So those are capabilities that you'll need to enable. It's very easy to do. We can add the documentation to this chat. Basically for the live manual test, you'll need to turn on instrumentation and network capture within your device settings. And then for the automated test, it's something that you can add into your capabilities. So we'll add the documentation. So it's not by default, but it is very easy to enable.
We have a question whether is camera within Sauce Labs mobile devices accessible for barcode scanning?
Yes. Okay. So that is a good question. I think I added information on that as well, but we do support the use case of camera image injection. So you're able to upload images or upload files and basically simulate the QR code scanning experience. Since these are real devices in our data center, you are able to access the camera, but it is in the data center. So you'll basically just see a blank screen there. So what we recommend for that use case is using our camera image injection feature.
How does Sauce Labs assist with existing automation tests to plug in the vitals visibility?
How does Sauce Labs assist with the existing automation tests to plug in the vitals visibility? So if I'm understanding that correctly, I think you're asking how you would add in device vitals to existing test scripts. And if I'm understanding correctly, that is where you would add in the capabilities to capture the device vitals into your test automation, and then just run the tests on the Sauce Labs real devices the same way that you typically do by adding the environment variable and access key. So that way you're pointing your test at the Sauce Labs devices. and you would just add in the capabilities to capture device vitals, and then you would see it in your sauce test results.
Thank you, Kristen. We also had a question that came in before, like, can you elaborate more on the capability to create API tests from mobile UI tests, and is this available for all Sauce Labs users today?
Yeah, so in the demo video that Kareem showed there, he did show the network capture happening, but he also, he didn't show in the logs the network HAR file. That's an additional capability that we have as well. And you could take that HAR file that's capturing all the network requests coming in during your testing session, add that to our API testing tool, and it would help you create test scripts. And so as of now, the API testing is available to all Sauce Labs users. You can access it from the Sauce UI by clicking on API testing. So that is available to you.
Great. We do have 2 more questions. Sushil Kumar wanted to know, why do we need to separate Backtrace? Why do we need a separate Backtrace account to get error and crash reporting? And I know work is already happening around this, but Kristen, you can definitely help answer that.
Yeah, I can give my take on it. Part of it is with Sauce Labs wanting to build out our entire DevOps test tool chain. In the past couple of years, we've done a lot of acquisitions. So Backtrace was an acquisition of ours in the last year or so, I believe. And so while we are adding those functionalities and integrations into the Sauce UI, as of now, that is still a separate license. I can say that we are eventually shifting towards a new pricing model where you'll be able to access all of the different Sauce capabilities under a credit-based system. So it will be easier to try out and experiment with different solutions and services. But right now it is a separate license, but we do have the integration with Sauce. So all of the testing session is shared between the two. Any of your authorization or account permissions would be shared between the two. It just launches into a separate UI for Backtrace.
Thank you. Padmaraj has a question. Can we handle the network settings in iOS device using Sauce Labs? Like in some of the mobile automation tools, we can't handle network settings of iOS devices.